We are still in chapter 37. Last week, we're up to the bottom of the page of Mem Zayin. In the bottom, it's 170. The top, it's Mem Zayin. At the new paragraph, 4 lines from the end of the page. Okay, so the Alter Rebbe in Perek Lamed Vav was saying the ultimate purpose of creation is Dira B'Tachteinim, to have a dwelling place down here. And he explained that means the ultimate revelation of godliness. And in Perek Lamed Zayin that we're learning now, the Alter Rebbe is explaining that the ultimate revelation of Tchias HaMesim is dependent on our avodah during the time of Golus. And the Alter Rebbe elaborated because the Dira B'Tachteinim, the dwelling place that Hashem wants us to create down here, is making the physical world holy. So he says, what happens when a person does a mitzvah? Now, you can't do mitzvah with forbidden things. In fact, there's another din in Shulchan Aruch. The Alter Rebbe writes, mitzvah ba b'aveilah, a mitzvah that comes through a sin, ain't a mitzvah klal, is not a mitzvah at all. For instance, somebody steals tefillin and puts them on. Somebody steals money and gives it to tzedakah. It's not a mitzvah because it came through a sin. So you can't do mitzvahs with forbidden items, with treifa items. Okay? You want to put on tefillin, the parchment has to be from a kosher animal. You have to bench shlicht, you shouldn't do it with treifa oil, even that is questionable in halacha because it's a rabbinic mitzvah. But whatever it is. But a person, Alter Rebbe says, when a person does a mitzvah with a gashmiistika object, that until now was kosher, but it wasn't holy. So where did it get its nourishment from? From klipas noiga, from the neutral level of evil. What happens when a person does a mitzvah with that object? He's elevating it to kedusha. Then the Alter Rebbe continues and says, even mitzvahs that are verbal mitzvahs, learning Torah, davening, verbal mitzvahs. So those mitzvahs, even though they're not action, but nevertheless, akimas vasav havamais, the Alter Rebbe said, verbal articulation, verbal moving of the lips is considered an action. Then what are you elevating? You're elevating your body. You're elevating your animal soul. So when a person does a mitzvah, the Alter Rebbe says, what are we doing? What are we accomplishing? We are sanctifying the physical objects of the world and making them godly. That's why the revelation of Tchias HaMesim and Mashiach is dependent on what we do during the time of Golus. Okay? And the last thing the Alter Rebbe said, that the more, with more vibrant that you speak and act and learn, so like he says, by Torah, the Gemara says, if it's established within all your limbs, you're going to remember it. If not, you're not going to remember it. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe is saying, until now, that we elevate the world when we do mitzvahs. Now the Alter Rebbe says this, and in addition to what we spoke, that the power of the animal soul, like you said before, what we learned last week, when a person speaks, what part of his existence is giving him the ability to speak? The nefesh habamis. We're not tzaddikim. We don't live. We didn't kill our yetzaros, so we don't live from the nefesh sholakis, the godly soul. Where are we living from? We're living from the animal soul. So therefore, when a person speaks Torah, where's he getting that power from? From the animal soul. Now the animal soul is doing holy things, so the animal soul becomes elevated. He says, or mitzvahs ma'isius. He says even more. What happens is like this. Where is the person's strength and vitality? Comes from the blood, which is klipas negamamish, which is not, again, not kedusha. In other words, the Alter Rebbe says like this: blood is the life of the person. Right? A living person is when the blood goes all over the body. God forbid, if there's a clot and the blood can't get to that part of the body and you can't save it, God forbid, that limb dies. God forbid. or if it's a vital organ, the whole person can die. So he says like this: the growth of the person comes from the blood, our blood. Now, where does the blood get its nourishment from? From the food that we eat. The food becomes damu basar. So he says like this: Shein kol eichlin umashkim. Where does the blood come from? From all the food and drink. Sha'achal v'shasa, that the person ate and drank. V'nasadam, and now the food becomes blood. It becomes blood and damu basar, blood and flesh. Shahoyu tachas memshalta. Until now, this food before the Jew ate it, the blood before the Jew did a mitzvah with it, came from klipas neiga, the yonku chayusim mimeno, and it gets the nourishment, like he says in the first parak of Tanya. What is the source of life of the nefesh habamis? Klipas neiga. But now, now that a person is doing a mitzvah with his body, so not only is he elevating the body, not only is he elevating the words that he does, he's transforming the blood, the power that he has to do these mitzvahs, from bad to good, to kedusha, which means you're elevating all the food that you ate that became the blood that's giving you the power to do all these things. The nechlelas b'kedusha, and now they become included in kedusha. They kreach nefesh achiyunis, through the power of the animal soul, hagodol mimena, that grows from the food that we eat. Right, the body and the nefesh habamis grow from the food that we eat that turns into blood. Which dresses itself into the words of Torah, or ba'asiyazu, or this action. Which now these mitzvahs are the real will of Hashem. I'm going to read it, I'm going to explain it completely. Without any concealment of godliness. Therefore, which is the Ratzon of Hashem. The Rebbe is saying it very simple. When a person does a mitzvah, what happens? Number one, the Rebbe said you take a physical object and you make it whole. Secondly, even if it's verbal, you're elevating your mouth, the power of the nefesh achiyus. Then the Rebbe says even more than that. The fact that you do a mitzvah with your blood and flesh, because that's what gives us the energy to do the mitzvah, all of your blood now is dressing itself into the real will of Hashem, which is Torah mitzvahs. Remember, in the past we discussed that there is the real will of Hashem and there's the external will from Hashem. In a simple analogy, a person wants to work. They want to work. Is that their real will? It is not their real will. Why? The real will is they want money. In order to get money, I have to work. So therefore, I want to work, but that's not my real will. I want money. So therefore, I want to work because I need to make money. Hashem created a world. Hashem created a world. The purpose of world is not the creation of world. The purpose of creation of world is because Hashem wanted a dira b'tachteinim, a dwelling place down here, through Torah mitzvahs, by making us, making the world holy. So if Hashem created the world, the real will of Hashem is to make the dira, the dwelling place where Hashem could reveal himself through us doing Torah mitzvahs, because it's dependent on our avodah, the Rebbe says. So then what happens? What happens is the blood and flesh, which until now was under the jurisdiction of Klipas Neiga, now becomes one with the real will of Kedusha. That means the blood of the Jew, by the way, which include within it all the food that we ate that created that blood, that created that blood, that all becomes elevated from klipas nega, klipa. The food before we ate it was klipa, kosher food, klipas nega. The blood before we did anything with it, it's klipas nega. It comes from the nefesh habahamis. Now that the Jew is doing Torah mitzvahs with that, what is it doing? It's elevating it from klipas nega. It's becoming one with the essence and the real will of Hashem, of why He created the world. And therefore, this is an additional explanation why our actions of Torah mitzvahs are actually what the revelation of Mashiach is dependent on. The revelation of Mashiach is dependent on what we do. What we do is elevating the physical world to Kedusha. So either we take a physical paper, make it holy, we take physical lulav and esrog to make it holy, or when we learn, we're elevating our mouth and our brain and all that. But he says even more. When a Jew does a mitzvah, they're elevating the blood in them that did the mitzvah, that'll give them the energy to do the mitzvah. But if you have low blood pressure, you don't have energy. You have blood pressure that allows you to do the mitzvah, which came about through all the food that we ate. So basically, every Jew is elevated through doing one mitzvah. They're elevating all the stuff that they did to be able to have the energy and the power to put on tefillin, or to go put on tefillin with another Jew. So I'm going to explain something now, because Alter Rebbe is going to come to it also soon, but I want to explain it now. There are positive mitzvahs and there are negative mitzvahs. Okay, what's interesting, on a positive mitzvah, we make a bracha. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvayta v'tzivanu, la'ad k'neshel Shabbos Kodesh, al mitzvahs tefillin, laniach tefillin, whatever the bracha is. We make a bracha. There's no such thing as making a bracha negative mitzvah. I don't eat pig, so I'm going to make a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvayta v'tzivanu, not to eat pig. You don't do that. What is the difference between positive mitzvahs and negative mitzvahs? Not only that, the person is created in the image of God, right? The beginning of Chumash. A person is created in the image of Hashem. So now the question is like this. We know there's 613 mitzvahs. There's 248 positive mitzvahs, and there's 365 negative mitzvahs. The Gemara says, and Kabbalah says, that the 248 positive mitzvahs, why did Hashem give us 248 positive mitzvahs? Because they are called Evarim de Malka. Mitzvahs are called the limbs of Hashem. The 365 negative mitzvahs, it's interesting. The Rambam in his introduction to Sefer HaMitzvahs writes 248 corresponds with the limbs of a person, the organs and the limbs of a person. Meaning, every limb says, do a mitzvah with me. The 365 negative mitzvahs, the Rambam writes, where does that come from? The 365 solar days of the year. And the Rambam says, what it means is, every day don't do a sin. That's the connection between 365 negative commandments correspond with the 365 days in the solar calendar, and the 248 corresponds with the limbs of the person. Now, Arizal writes, and Kabbalah writes, and that's where Chassidus always brings it down, the 248 corresponds with the limb of the person. What is the 365? Shasag Yidim. You have to listen when they make a Mishaberach during the week. Gidov are veins or sinews, whichever one you would, whatever English word you want to use. Positive mitzvahs are called the limbs of Hashem. The 365 negative mitzvahs are the veins of the human body. Limbs and veins. What's the difference between veins, which are positive mitzvahs, and veins, which are the 365 commandments? So you can talk about this explain it for a very, very long time. I'm going to make it in the 15, try to whatever. Let's see what we do. When Torah uses words, it's supposed to understand something. What is a limb of a person? A limb of a person, you have a hand, okay? A hand is a limb. Your mouth is a limb. Your eyes are a limb. Feet are a limb. What is the concept of a limb? The concept of a limb is the way the neshama functions in the world. You have a neshama, it has to function in the body. How does a neshama function in the body? What is a limb? You have a hand. What is a hand? A hand is that part of the body that absorbs within it the power of writing that the neshama has. The eyes are a limb that absorb the power of sight that the neshama has. Each limb of the person, 248 limbs, function as a conduit where Hashem's revelation, where the neshama's revelation comes into. The power of sight goes into the eye. The power of smelling goes into the nose. The power of walking is in the foot. The power of writing is in the hand. Okay, and all the other 248 limbs. So what is a limb? A limb is the vessel for the revelation of the nefesh. What are mitzvahs? 248 positive mitzvahs are limbs of Hashem. What does that mean? Hashem doesn't have a body up there. It means in human terms. That means when I do a mitzvah, I put on tefillin, I light Shabbos candles. That mitzvah is the limb that brings down that power of godliness that's connected to the tefillin and the hand that I put the tefillin on with, or the hand that I lit the Shabbos candles with. Positive mitzvahs brings kedusha into the world, just like the limbs of a person bring the power of the neshama into fruition. Meaning, the neshama has a power to write, but if it doesn't have a fingers to write, it can't write. So, what reveals and brings into actuality, into a tangible way, the power of writing of the neshama? That's the fingers, not the foot, not the mouth, not the nose. That's smelling and talking and seeing and hearing and everything else. So mitzvahs are called the limbs of Hashem. Why? These mitzvahs, just like the hand, brings down the power of writing that the neshama has. This mitzvah brings down that particular revelation of godliness into the world, to function in the world. Why are there 248 mitzvahs? Why didn't Hashem give us 18, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, or for that matter, 3,000? Why did Hashem give us 248 positive mitzvahs? Because there's exactly 248 different forms that Hashem reveals himself in the world. And therefore, when we do a mitzvah, we reveal that particular power of godliness into the world, just like the hand brings down the power of writing that the neshama has. That's why the mitzvahs are called limbs. So what happens when that happens? When that happens, we're bringing down kedusha into the world. When a person's action of a mitzvah brings down kedusha into the world. So therefore we can make a bracha. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvah v'tzivanu. Because again, the limb brings down the power of sight, the power of speech, the power of hearing or smelling or writing or walking, whatever. A mitzvah brings down a unique revelation of Hashem that only that mitzvah brings down. Therefore, you could say a bracha, we're bringing Kedusha into the world. What happens when it comes to the negative commandments? I don't eat chazer. Okay. What happens when I don't eat chazer? Nothing. Am I bringing holiness into the world by doing nothing? No. I can bring holiness into the world by doing nothing. In order to bring godliness into the world, I need to do something. What is the concept of negative mitzvahs? The concept of negative mitzvahs is like the veins of a person's body. What do the veins of the person do? Physical veins. The veins channel the blood to go to the proper limb, how much that particular limb needs. Some limbs need more blood than others. If they're bigger limbs, they need more blood. Less limbs, less blood. What is the purpose of a vein? A vein channels the neshama's power into the right place. I have veins in my hand where the blood originates in the heart. So my veins in the hand actually allow me to write. Because they're channeling it into the right place. What happens though if I channel it into the wrong place? Then what am I doing? It's not only that I didn't bring more holiness into the world. Now when I eat chazer, I do a sin that I'm not allowed to do. Let's take this, eating chazer. Chazer itself is klipa, evil. Evil is darkness. Evil has no sustenance. Darkness has no sustenance. It's nothing. It's scary, but it's nothing. God makes evil exist in the world not because he wants evil. He doesn't want evil at all. Why did God create evil? In order for good to be good, we need the ability to do evil. Because if we cannot do evil, then good is not good, because then that's all we could do. We have no free will. That's why angels who are programmed to do good and they do good, it's worthless. They don't get reward for it because that's what they're programmed to do. Angels don't have a Yetzer Hara. They can't do anything. They're programmed to do good. What did Hashem want? Hashem said, I'm creating evil. Why? Not because I want evil. Because in order for good to be good, I need to be able to choose between good and bad. And therefore, when I choose good, I did good. But what happens, chas v'shalom, when I choose evil? When I, God forbid, choose evil, what actually happens is now I gave strength to evil. Like this evil itself is powerless. Evil has no, it's not what Hashem wants. It's darkness. It's evil. It's only existing because Hashem needs good to be good. So therefore, as long as I don't strengthen evil, evil dies out. What happens though when I feed evil? Meaning I, a Jew who has a neshama, which is a part of Hashem, now takes that mouth, that energy, instead of talking Torah, bringing godliness into the world, now takes it and eats chazer. What the Jew just did, whether they like it or not, they fed evil. Meaning, the godly power that my neshama has, instead of being channeled into kedusha, was now channeled into evil. I took kedusha power. Now, the Rebbe talks a lot about this in the Gersa Tshuva. I take the power of kedusha that I have, and I feed evil with it. That's why the negative mitzvahs are called veins. What is the purpose of a vein? The purpose of a vein is to bring the blood to the right place, in the right time, in the right amount. What happens, God forbid, when I don't? Then I'm bringing the blood not where it belongs. I'm bringing the blood to evil. I'm strengthening evil. Therefore, you can't make a bracha on an evil and a negative mitzvah, because the bracha means that you're doing something to bring kedusha into the world. Negative mitzvahs, not eating chazan, not speaking lashon hara, not desecrating Shabbos, all the negative things, 365 of them, is not bringing kedusha in the world. What happens is, if I did evil, if I do evil, I'm channeling the godly greatness that the Jew has of the neshama and brings it down into evil. It's counted the shchinas and golas. So in other words, that's the whole concept of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is to bring kedusha into the physical world. So therefore mitzvahs are called the limbs, just like the limbs bring down the power of the neshama into the body to function. Mitzvahs bring down, and that's why there's 248 limbs, because that's the amount of limbs a person needs. And by the way, now, they tell you the tonsil, the gallbladder, you really don't need it. You know what? If you really haven't not needed it, Hashem wouldn't have made it. Obviously, there's a need for it. They might not know what it is, but there's a need. If not, Hashem wouldn't make it. So Hashem created 248 limbs in a person, just like he has 248 limbs. What is the 248 limbs of Hashem? That channel down the limb, brings down the power of the neshama to function in the world. Mitzvah brings down godliness into the world, making the world holy. I make a bracha. Negative commandments don't do that. They're veins. What is the role of the vein? The role of the vein is to bring the blood, which is Adamu HaNefesh, the chayis of the nefesh, and to channel it into the right channels. God forbid if I sin in a negative mitzvah, the shasag gidim I transgress, so then I'm challenging it, I'm doing a bypass to evil. I'm taking my godly power in the vein, in the blood, which is the nefesh, and I'm just bringing into evil through my action. When I don't do that, I'm just functioning properly, that kedusha is holy and evil has no existence to it, and nobody's feeding evil, and therefore evil weakens and weakens and weakens. The problem is when we feed evil, then it gets very powerful. If it gets very powerful, we got a problem. Then we have a problem. But you can't make a bracha on something negative. And now the Rebbe is going to hint and allude to this whole thing that we spoke about now, the difference between positive mitzvahs, why they're called evarim, why the negative mitzvahs are called veins, the function of the limb versus the functions of the veins. Veins is the mitzvahs to bring down kedusha into the world, and each limb says, do a mitzvah with me. Every limb has its particular mitzvah that it needs to do. The veins function is to bring the blood to the right place and make sure it doesn't go to the wrong place. And therefore you can't make a bracha, because we're not bringing kedusha down into the world. Okay, Mitzvah Shem Monday, there will be a shir, and probably Chedesh Kiss will probably have a little Farbrengen also on the Zoom class on Monday night. So until then, everybody have a great Shabbos.